welcome to Ikate's Crossing as we continue our exploration of the universal heart. Okay, using the common thread tarot, but just the major arcana by hand with that pencil. Let's have a look and see what are we going to look at for this chapter that we're going to, or this part of the book that we're going to read. Let's have a look. So we're looking at strength and patience. That seems really important here. Next card, we look at the Empress with the abundance of love. So having the strength and the courage, having the courage and the patience to deal with love in many ways, to have that sense of abundance and love. And here we're looking at the changes and the transformation within love as well. What an interesting combination of cards we have here as we think about love in this book that we're reading, The Universal Heart. So let us continue. Deepen your self-insurance. Benefits from living lovingly flow in all directions. Self-insurance and self-respect develop as your stance in the world becomes more open and stable. And as you more securely trust your capacity to take good care of yourself. This arises quite inevitably from valuing your own life and your own journey, and recognizing in a real way how inclusive love is, that it includes all of who you are, that it includes a lively awareness of the world around you, and that's no small thing. Such an attitude involves and develops trust, resilience, flexibility, self-awareness, the capacity to reflect on mistakes and learn from them. Those are the essential skills of empathy needed as vitally in your work life, as at home with friends or out in your community. Those are also skills that can't be learnt theoretically, only they arise from experience, from engaging with life, identifying positive values, putting them into practice, and always taking responsibility for yourself and watching out for others. It may be that no one has ever built a secure foundation for their life except through an active concern for others. Our social needs are paramount. When we can experience them positively and not as a distraction or intrusion, and when we can trust ourselves to respond positively to other people, then our longings for self-acceptance, respect, and love will inevitably be met. Pamela Margosh is in her early 40s. She's a freelance writer and a wife and a daughter. As a young woman, Pamela felt tremendous anger towards her parents, but the story Pamela tells is less about her parents than about how making a significant change in their relationship with her mother powerfully influenced her attitude towards her husband also. My parents were both critical and demanding, she explains, but also very loving, which was confusing for a child. But then 7 years ago, my mother got a very small cancer in one of her breasts, and my whole life and perspective changed. Okay. So, my parents were both, let me start again. My parents were both critical and demanding, she explained, but also very loving, which was confusing for a child. But then 7 years ago, my mother got a very small cancer in one of her breasts, and my whole life and perspective changed. Virtually overnight, I forgave her. I understood why she was the way she was. Her parents were killed in a concentration camps. She was sent to live with a family at age 8 in England. She had been essentially an orphan since that time. I was then able to focus on the many wonderful things about her regard for intellect, books, music, over materialism. As Pamela saw her mother differently and released herself from the resentment she had carried forward from childhood, their relationship improved dramatically. We no longer hold back from each other as we did in the past. She even asks me for advice now, the ultimate compliment from a formerly critical parent. I understand how her past drove her to do what she did, how fear and abandonment driven she was. After my mother got sick, I had a kind of a rock bottom transcendent sense of how vital it is just to live life and not get mired down in the bullshit, the bathos, the stupidity. That is the core value I share with my parents, the one that got wonderfully gorgeously illuminated and rushed to front of center in our new relationship. This huge shift in Pamela's relationship with her mother was a great gift for both women, but that time of change had other benefits. When Pamela was in college, she had a nervous breakdown. The person who nursed her through this ordeal is a man who had become and has remained her husband. He saw me stripped down to my raw filament, my foundation, Pamela says, and saw through it all to me, and fell in love with me as needy and hurt as I was. I'm forever spoilt by such sympathy as he showed me, such intelligence. In the years since, Pamela's husband has, in her words, proven himself over and over to be just as sensitive and trustworthy as he was in college. Pamela's gratitude for her husband's consistent care and love is clear. What is most striking about the story, however, is that it was only in the upheaval of change following her mother's illness that Pamela also recognized how she could express this gratitude not in words only, but in a change of emotional habits that would benefit her and very specifically benefit her husband. Pamela says, because of all the stress in my life, guilt over being high strung, plus the accumulated annoyances of being a writer, I used to have a very bad temper. I'd blow up several times a week. It took a toll on my husband, which I didn't realize until my mother got sick, and I had to re-examine my every behavior, my every feeling, my every rigid thought process, my every emotional block, in order to break through it all to have a vastly improved relationship with my mother. Doing so, really thinking through my fixed responses to life, to stimuli, made me realize how toxic and destabilizing my anger had been in the emotional ecosystem of my marriage. It's easy to imagine how good it must have felt for Pamela to discover that her fixed responses were not so fixed after all. Our powers of self-persuasion are impossible to overestimate. We are not simply affecting but creating our relationships through our attitudes, that web of beliefs about who we are, who others are, what we and they are capable of, about where our limits are, about what we can or cannot do. Few of us take the time to develop the self-awareness that Pamela did, yet the practical as well as psychological benefits of her willingness to be self-responsible, to take control of her own attitudes and behavior are tremendous. I'm proud to say that I no longer blow up as often, she reports. I finally learned that this is the best way to repay, if you will, my husband for so many years of emotional support and empathy. Clear the air with positive change. One of the themes that emerged most clearly for me in the writing of this book is how positive the results are when one person in any relationship ecosystem goes beyond the worn routines that keep both people stuck and increase their frustration. You blame, I blame, you accuse, I accuse, you get angry, I get angrier, you get righteous, I get more righteous. Those dances of accusation and counter-accusation, of attack and counter-attack, can seem utterly compelling, but they are built on habits only, not on rock. When one person can imaginatively take a step backwards, look at a different situation more broadly, and act consciously to bring in a more considered initiative or response, a vital breath of cleansing air enters the situation and benefits everyone. The function of psychotherapy and of couple counselling is often to bring in that shift of perspective and the hope that comes with it. Yet such a reviving shift can happen just as effectively outside the formal therapeutic encounter. It can arise because someone is willing to push beyond an impasse and move the situation on. That was true for Nikki and for Pamela, in a different way and in the face of different challenges. Michelle's story also shows this. Michelle is 34 and self-described serial monogamist. She has had 2 long relationships and recently broke up reluctantly and painfully from a shorter significant relationship. She grew up in a family where they perceived the rule as being never make a wave. This means, as Michelle describes it, you existed in relationships regardless of how miserable, inappropriate, or unfulfilling they may have seemed. Expressing needs or wants or feelings was unacceptable, and if we managed to, expectations were always unmet, and we were left feeling unvalidated. The change Michelle created was with a man she had loved some years earlier. She says, I choose to forgive my ex, and equally myself for the mess we'd created in a 5-year on-off shitty, sexually obsessive relationship. At the time I was participating in a personal development course. One night our topic was forgiveness. We had to choose 2 separate people in situations where we felt we'd been wronged. We'd really wronged, and were now going to forgive. For one of them I chose my ex-boyfriend. They took us into a meditation, where during the meditation we forgave them and ourselves. It was quite powerful during the meditation, and felt really cleansing. At the end of the evening they told us our homework was to contact those people and tell them we had forgiven them. I was totally resistant, but because I was serious about the course and have actively wanted to dump my baggage, I didn't see that I had a choice. I actually called him up out of the blue. My heart was in my throat as I made the call, and told him I forgave him, and owned my part in it, and told him I also forgave me too. He was totally stunned, though pleasantly surprised. He's now a really valuable, dear close friend. Something I've never in a million years would have expected with him. Interestingly, too, since then, he often spontaneously in conversation will acknowledge and apologize for how badly he treated me way back when we were in a relationship, and constantly tells me how beautiful I am. Both things I longed for so much when we were together, he often reaffirms now. This wonderful outcome that an opponent could vanish, and a real valuable, dear, close friend would occupy his place, could occur only because Michelle was prepared to give up the familiar comfort of blaming her former boyfriend for their shared miseries, but because she also ceased to blame herself. Blame is a huge obstacle to love, one of the greatest. It denies your complexity and that of the other person. It shuts out generosity. It keeps you locked in the past. It gives other people the power to spoil or diminish your life. And it creates self-pity and helplessness on a massive scale. Discover how effectively you can help yourself. We can't move through life without becoming aware that there are impulses in all of us that are ugly, self-defeating, even sadistic. We have countless opportunities to encourage other people to ease their difficulties or to make their lives more comfortable, but often we miss these chances. Self-absorption, self-importance, or self-pity can cause us to not only to pass those moments by, but to feel justified in doing so. Resentment frequently blocks the path of love. It can turn our minds into calculating machines, working out constantly what we are owed and who has failed us, rather than looking at the opportunities we have to enjoy life and relieve ourselves and other people of what we can turn into continual flow of complaints. Resentment can set us up in a childish relationship to the universe. Why should I? What's more, resentment is highly contagious, and what we fail to do is only part of the picture. Words can fly from our mouths that not only demean us, but can also injure others. As I was working on this chapter, my friend Manny rang to tell me how dismayed his 15-year-old son had been when he heard older boys at his privileged single-sex school speak with breathtaking contempt about girls they and he had danced with at the combined school functions the previous weekend. These boys did not know the girls, and their judgment had no value. But what shocked Manny was that such ugly impulses were so available to the boys. Who knows what the trigger was for those remarks? But the sexist venom that emerged was horribly familiar, and even if we interpret it as a defense against the boys' own insecure feelings about girls, it is still possible to see how sad it is that these impulses were so readily available to them. To live and love generously, we need to monitor the tone and the content of our most routine remarks. We need to avoid falling into the trap of making lazy assumptions about people whose choices will not be ours. We need to stay clear of the delusional belief that in cutting other people down, we can build ourselves up. We are all capable of behaving badly with other people and of blaming them for our wrongdoing. Sometimes we pretend not to know what we are doing. Sometimes we are totally aware of what we are doing. Either way, it's tempting to find reasons why our damaging behaviors not only should but must continue. Yet swallowing that myth, we give up our most vital freedom. Whatever we tell ourselves, no one can make us behave badly. No past harmful experiences can force us to replay those behaviors. No provocations in the present can force us to abandon our values. The moment that we recognize our behavior is hurting someone, damaging our relationships, or is putting us in danger, we need to stop. Even as your mouth opens to criticize, undermine, or yell, close your mouth. Even as tears of self-pity well up in your eyes, wipe them away. Even as you feel flooded with the negativity you long to express, silence yourself. Doing this, you save yourself as well as others. Sometimes you may need to leave wherever you are and walk or run. You may need to sit in a quiet space and observe your strong feelings without judgment until you experience that they have been transformed or have subsided, or that time has moved you on. Esther gave me a valuable description of this process. She is an energetic, passionate woman in her early 50s, whose rapid access to feelings is a great part of her charm. The dark side of this is a quickness of temper that can lead to judgment and injury. Esther reminded me most usefully that one of the good things about just being with your anger, neither expressing nor repressing it, is that you come to see much more clearly how routine the triggers for it usually are. Holding my anger and observing it, Esther explains, is one of the best things I've learned. Seeing it softening and changing as I look at it with my mind's eye and stay with it as it changes, not denying the anger nor expressing the anger, just holding it tenderly and observing from where it comes. This sounds inviting but challenging too. Esther agrees. This has been long and difficult practice for me. I used to often feel resentful, which is just another version of blaming. Seeing the same triggers for that anger has been valuable. Similar patterns emerging. Holding the anger when I feel the hot flush that threatens to explode me into out of control blindness. It still happens, but with less frequency and a lot less intensity. Sometimes I even get through it without damage. And if the tides of fury are coming towards you and not from you, there is also crucial to remove yourself as well as others in your care who could be affected and harmed, and to know that you are entitled to do so. To remove yourself from harm from outside yourself, and also harm arising from your own self-punishing thoughts or impulses to hurt others, and is an essential act of self-love. Risk love. Love can grow as you grow. Trusting in your own capacity to love, practicing being open, accepting, slow to blame, quickly forgiving. You quite inevitably get better at it. You are good to be around. It feels good to be you. This does not mean that you then love everyone in the same way. However far you get along the path of love, you'll be closer to some people than to others. Love only asks that you stretch the boundaries of your intention. Move out of your comfort zone. Value other people more honestly and less exclusively. Create chances to be encouraging, and recognize that you need no one else's permission to live lovingly. Loving generously, you can like and trust all kinds of people. You can include them in your capacity to care. Trusting the value of living lovingly, you find your horizons expand. The well-being of the world you live in becomes your business. And where does the world start, except from where you are? You are the future. Raina Maria Rilke promises. You are the future, the immense morning sky, turning red over the prairies of eternity. Your future extends beyond this moment through the most exquisite expressions of your personal power. To choose to treat other people well, to be willing to be kind to yourself. And how you look depends on where you are. From a boat you are sure. From the shore, a boat. Hey, that's it from me for today. Don't forget to check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. Take care and blessed be.